Hey, hi, Chair. I'm trying to understand your interpretation of what parts of the Constitution you would enforce versus what parts of the Constitution you do enforce.
Sure.
You said you enforce the Second Amendment. I understand that. It's fairly important. But just as important is the First Amendment, right, speech.
Sure.
But yet, when it comes to black people speaking up, you'll burn a Raven shirt saying, that's no good. My rights are more important than your rights. Now, see, racism isn't particularly just saying a bad word. Racism is found in policy.
Yes.
And policy is saying that your opinion doesn't count. That 400 years you just contributed to this nation and got nothing for it, that doesn't count. Your right to protest, that doesn't count. Your contribution that your father made in the service and your brother made in the service and in Vietnam when they got hooked on opium and every other conceivable thing you could imagine, that doesn't count. Because my right to protest trumps your right to protest. To me, that's just another avenue, another way of saying, you know what, we got it right, you got it wrong, you toe the line. This is our interpretation of the Constitution. You do what we say. And I don't know if you know it or not, but it's a very intimidating thing when you get on the job site the next time, or the next day, and you say, have a lot of white guys around the cooler going like, that's right, you toe the line.
Yes.
To answer the question that I think was in there was, do I support the First and the Second Amendment? Absolutely. I said, when I was asked this question a little while ago, I will stand up beside Colin Kaepernick and defend him, his right to take a knee. I was respectful. May I answer the question? I will defend his right to take a knee. When he does it in his uniform at work, he is speaking on behalf of his organization. If one of my deputies do something in this uniform, they will join the other 11 people who depart. Because when they are speaking in this outfit, they are not speaking as an individual. They are speaking as a member representing the Harford County Sheriff's Office. When he does it, this is Jeff Gahler's opinion, but when he does it in that uniform, he is representing the belief of the league that the action is okay.
No, not at all. Well, he got, it's Sheriff Gahler. He got $80 million, so it don't really matter. He got $80 million for that kneeling. But I think what Carlos is really trying to say is that you're very influential in the community, and you have to be careful. And I understand, on a personal level, you and I, we cool.
Yes.
So I don't want you to think
No,
that I'm
cool
hardly
with
cool.
everybody.
You know what I'm saying?
cool with Carlos.
But you got to be careful about your position, because your position is very powerful. Because actually, when I first went to the MOA where I met Lisa at, Voices of Racial Change, actually one of your representatives, we had a discussion about the news that you guys were looking at, and I was concerned about that, and I'm going to tell you why. A lot of people were looking at Fox News, and my problem is he was telling me that wouldn't I be intimidated if I rolled up to a car and a black person was in there? I said, well, wait a sec, where'd you get that from? And so that's a concern. It kind of all flows in. You got to understand, you have an awesome responsibility, and people take your lead, and maybe you didn't do it, but they will take it and run with it, because some people are just that crazy and that ignorant or whatever, what have you. So just be careful. I guess that's what his point is.
I believe a lot of politicians, and this isn't going to make anyone feel any better about whether you agree with me or not or certain things. I believe a lot of politicians will come and feed a group at the line and then go say something else to another group. Yeah, I'm going to tell you, I told you what I do to people who don't tell the truth. I'm going to tell you, not that I'm not going to get some facts for all this, the date on the MOA, but I'm certainly going to be honest with you, and that's my commitment to the citizens of Harford County. I was elected based on what I promised this community I would do, and not 100% of the community is going to agree with it, but I'm going to do the things that I promised to do as effectively as I can do them, and all of that centered on keeping Harford County as a safer place to live.
So
I know this gentleman here was...
I'm just going to point out what you're saying here. That statement was awesome.
Hey.
Making a statement about what Colin Kaepernick should or should not be doing does not really directly relate to your job. And so what you're just hearing from the a small segment of the African American community is that when you make statements like that, it has maybe some unintended consequences. And I think what people are looking for is for you to acknowledge that that is what you're hearing, that you're hearing what you're
Oh,
saying.
I understand the perspective, and I don't expect us all to agree on things, but as an individual, now that was posted on my personal, it didn't go on to, because a lot of things go on to, it didn't go onto the Harford County Sheriff's Office page with 50,000 followers on our page. It went onto my personal page. That's my personal political page. Yeah, but it's not the Harford County Sheriff, it's my page. But I'm an elected official, that's, okay.
So my question is along the same lines. And I didn't know that was his question.
Okay.
But to say that Kaepernick shouldn't kneel during the national anthem, when coming from our perspective, what the national anthem stands for and represents, when it talks about all of us being created equal and that type of thing, as African Americans, we don't feel that. It's absolutely his right, whether he's in uniform or not, to kneel whenever he wants to kneel. It doesn't make it wrong because he kneels during the national anthem. To kneel during the national anthem for military, when a soldier or military member is deceased or passes on, when they present that family with a flag, that's absolutely what they do, is kneel. It's in honor of that person. But to go back to Kaepernick, it's understanding, it's exactly what Delane just said, it's understanding that we come from different perspectives. It's not to say that your perspective is right or wrong, but just acknowledge that some people come from different perspectives and from different places. And so even for cops, right, where did that come from? For us, it was the captured slaves, right? Yes, so right. Policing, right, and returning them. So all of that plays a part in the way we see things, and we just ask that you acknowledge that. Right. You don't have to agree. You don't have to agree. Just acknowledge. Sure.
But I do understand that each of us are individuals and we all have different perspectives, and as groups, we have different histories and different perspectives, absolutely 100%. But I can't help but go back and make the example and say it was one of my white male deputies who wanted to take a knee during one of our ceremonies for an award ceremony because he believes, I don't know. I don't want to compare something as horrific as slavery in our country to something else, but he has a different perspective on something else and he decides to take a knee. I'm not going to accept it. There will be disciplinary action that would follow.
Can I just make a quick comment? Your words would be a lot easier to swallow if you had just stood up in the past and just said, hey, you know what? That thing that happened to Trayvon Martin, that was heinous. That thing that happened to Eric Brown or Philando Castile, that was heinous. But this, you stand up for. This, you burn a shirt for. This, you risk your political career for. But you've never stood up. You've never stood up for the black community like that. Never.
I would stand up in an instance. Now, Trayvon Martin was
when Philando Castile got murdered, you didn't stand up for that. Nobody in Harford County, no white official stood up for that. You know it, and I know it. It would be a lot easier to swallow your conversation, your logic about defending the Constitution if our rights weren't abrogated every day, but you decided to pick this issue.
No, well, I understand your perspective there. I will say, here in Harford County, we've had 4 shootings since I've been sheriff. We've shot 4 people. All of them happen to be white males. I can tell you, before I was sheriff, one of the most horrific things, I guess, for the deputy involved, was the shooting of the unarmed 18-year-old young man at the snowball stand in Forest Hill. Shootings happen. You can look at the data, and this is going to be a whole nother meeting. You can look at the data and the percent shooting. This is part of why I bought the judgmental shooting simulator. And anyone wants to come and see it and see what police officers are faced with. If you change the demographic in that shooting, we could have been the center point, not Ferguson, not some of these other places around the country. Any police use of force is horrific. Hopefully we can do anything to avoid it. I don't think I've weighed in on any line of duty deaths, yes, where police officers have lost their lives, but I don't think I've weighed in on any shooting of anyone. So I don't think it's a fair comparison.
But a violation of First Amendment speech, you weigh in.
You see it as a violation of First Amendment. I see it as agency, policy, and I will defend his First Amendment all day long, which is what I said.
Okay, so here's what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say thank you so much for
Thank you.
coming.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you for the questions.
Thank you
Not
very
all of them are
much.
easy, but I do appreciate the opportunity.
And I hope that we'll have you back again, that you'll come back
I'd
again.
be happy to.
Wonderful.